Will the Dallas Cowboys get a single stop on defense? I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's really not. All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we are previewing the Week 9 matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Atlanta Falcons. Usually we start with the Cowboys offense, but Landon, let's go to their defense, which is incredibly banged up. No Micah Parsons this week, no DeMarcus Lawrence, no Marshawn Nealon, no Sam Williams. That's on the defensive line. In the secondary, still no Deron Bland as he works his way back from a foot injury. Likely no Trayvon Diggs, who has a small tear in his calf. How do the Cowboys get a stop? I'm honestly worried that they're not going to be able to get a single stop in this game.
I mean, you may be saying that we're starting with the defense, but we're starting out very offensively.
Yes,
and I'm going to continue to make that joke until the Cowboys defense, finally fields some starters in it, for goodness sakes. Yeah, I mean, look, it's just another week of holding on with both hands on defense and hoping that they can make a stop here and there, or that the offense will kind of shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, this has just become a numbers game at this point, right? Like, the Cowboys, we don't need to go over it again, but missing, close to half a dozen defensive ends, 3 of their top 6 corners, including their 2 best corners that are not going to be playing. I think that's the first time we've had that addition to the group, right?
I was thinking about it yesterday, Landon. Like, if you were to go into the season and rank their top 4 defensive players, it would have been Micah Parsons, Deron Bland, Trayvon Diggs 2 and 3, probably DeMarcus Lawrence 4. All 4 of those guys are going to be out this week. And then that doesn't even get into the depth of, Nealon missing and Sam Williams missing and Amani missing this game. Like, they are incredibly banged up.
And even, let's be clear, even when those guys were healthy, I mean, we haven't really seen Deron Bland on the field with anybody yet, but even when most of those guys were healthy, this team was struggling to stop offenses. So the fact that they're missing those guys and this is the same defense obviously doesn't bode well. So, with the skill players that Atlanta has on that side, and then let's not also discount the offensive line, which is one of the better offensive lines, and probably one of the more complete offensive lines in the league, right? So I do think that the Cowboys really are going to be in for all that they can handle on defense, because it's a mismatch issue. What Kirk and this offense wants to do offensively is not going to line up well with the injuries that the Cowboys have, clearly. And I think really what the Cowboys are going to have to do in order to kind of, put on any kind of pressure or any kind of resistance against this Atlanta offense is they're going to have to sell out on the blitz and key downs on run and pass downs. So, which obviously, leaves them susceptible to big play. So, it's not a great situation. The Cowboys are going to have to incur a lot of risk in order to kind of, make any sort of stops on defense. And frankly, hope that the Atlanta Falcons kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit like San Francisco did early in the game last week.
Yeah, honestly, what you would love to have in this game is for Atlanta just to be super pass happy, right? Try to throw the ball down the field, because I think that's your only chance of creating turnovers, getting some sacks. I think if Atlanta sticks to just trying to run the ball in this game, I think they can control the clock, and I think they're going to be able to move the ball with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Like, I just don't see the Cowboys being able to control the line of scrimmage enough. If you can get some tip passes or drop passes like we saw last week where Deebo Samuel dropped a big 4th down play. Like, you can get a couple of those. Maybe you luck out and keep this game close. they're going to need Mike Zimmer to have one of the best game plans he's ever had because they just don't have the horses on that side of the ball to get stops.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that clearly Zimmer has familiarity with this
Mm-hmm.
quarterback at the very least, right? You hope that maybe he has some secret sauce on the types of blitzes specifically Kirk hates to see, or he gets confused by, and so some key third downs he can deploy some magic that confuses him, and then maybe you get a stop and you get the ball back, and that could be kind of the difference in the game. But I think at this point, the expectation is try to get a handful of stops in this game. I don't think that if you're the Cowboys offense, I don't think you should be expecting this defense to consistently getting the Atlanta offense off the field.
No.
I expect that you're going to need to have your foot on the gas this whole game because Atlanta is likely to put up points and control the clock pretty regularly while they're doing so.
I think if the Cowboys defense can hold Atlanta under 30 points, that's a massive win. Right? Like you give yourself a chance to win this game. If it's over 30, it's going to be awfully hard to steal this one.
Yeah, and I think that lines up exactly with the predictions I made on WFAA this morning. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I think 30 is very much the kind of line of demarcation that the Cowboy. I mean, I would put it this way: I think the Cowboys' offense needs to expect to put up at least 30 to win this game.
And maybe you get some lucky bounces, some missed field goals, all that kind of stuff that keeps the score down. But I think again, that's where our expectations are at right now, and it's not unwarranted, right? The Saints game, they didn't get a stop. I think the Saints scored touchdowns on their first 6 drives. The Lions scored points on their first 9 drives of that game. Like we've seen this game script before. It's in a dome. Atlanta has one of the most balanced offenses in the league. They have weapons galore. I think you just have to assume that they're going to put up a lot of points. It's can you get some timely stops, give your offense a short field. Honestly, Leno, I'm thinking like if you get a stop a half, you might have a chance to steal this game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. It really is going to depend on exactly what this offense is able to do and how they're able to play. But yeah, I think that, we're going into this, probably 4 or 5 weeks now, maybe the whole season at this point after week 1, with the expectation that, hey, you're probably not going to get a lot out of your defense. So you're going to need your offense to really kind of pick up the slack here and then just hope that your defense can, create a play here and there to kind of steal an extra possession, give you an advantage, because the idea of holding them to, under 17 or 18 points, I just don't think it's happening.
We should mention the report. I guess it's not a report. Jerry Jones went out and said that Trayvon Diggs has a small tear in his calf. He did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday. I've got to assume, Landon, he's not playing in week 9. And I also wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys just put him on IR to save himself from a bigger injury. We've seen across the NFL, it's these injuries, these calf injuries that end up leading to Achilles injuries. It's a shame that we haven't been able to see DaRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs together, two all-pro corners healthy at the same time, really since 2022 for a tiny stretch at the end of that season.
That's right. It's terrible. It's you and I were talking about it before the show. The fact that you've got these two guys and you've seen them play so rarely together is really just like a tragedy. I do wonder if the Cowboys lose this game. Obviously, it truly kind of plummets their playoff odds and a lot of odds quite a bit. I do wonder if you start to see some of these kind of, not season-ending stuff, but being extremely cautious with these guys that could potentially be, in danger of aggravating or creating a long-term situation if they aren't starting to become more, judicious with them and a little bit more conservative with their timelines because they don't want to risk anything for next season because they know that there's not really anything to push for at the end of this year. So that's one of the the downsides or the kind of things that happen, the collateral issues that happen when you start losing a bunch of games is that eventually at a certain point you have to start thinking about the long-term health of this team and things like that start coming up.
By the way, just a little off topic, but did you see the quote? I believe Todd Archer posted it about Jerry Jones talking about like big picture of the team. And he was talking about the turnover differential and all that kind of stuff. But the very last line is, it really is a plus that we've won 3 games this year. Basically saying we're lucky that we won 3 games this year. I think that tells you kind of the mindset of the front office. Like they know this isn't a team that should be 6-2 or something like that after 8 games. Like I think they have realistic expectations about what this team is right now.
Yeah, they're just not projecting them to us, right?
No.
I think that you and I have been discussing this for a couple weeks now, that it's pretty clear that they know what's going on in regards to the reality of what the season is, like in the fact that they're rebuilding. But I think that, the issue has been now that they're starting to let the rest of the Cowboys fandom know, hey, this is not, the big push for the Super Bowl, clearly. And I think, again, watch their feet, not their lips. See what you come up with.
All right, let's talk about the Cowboys offense, which they started to look better in the second half of San Fran for a couple drives there. Is this the game that they finally get right on offense? We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff that show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. One of my favorite things about Game Time is that you're going to get a panoramic view of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what your seats look like. For comedy events, I like to sit actually a little bit higher up rather than on the sides. For football games, I like to sit in the end zone. It's just my favorite spot to sit watching football. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made just for super fans like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot and the ones who are last to leave. We see you. Listen, it's going to be a busy day of football on Sunday. You're going to need some 5 Hour Energy to help you go get through the 1 o'clock games. Obviously, the Cowboys play at 1, the 4, and the night game. It's going to be a long day of watching football, and that's why 5 Hour Energy has your back. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help you stay fueled throughout the season. Available on 5hourenergy.com. Ship nationwide. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are previewing the Week 9 matchup between the Cowboys and the Falcons. Landon, is this the get-right game for the Cowboys on offense?
I've stopped kind of waiting for like a switch to flip, right? And like for it to suddenly all look normal. I think what we were seeing is kind of a slow transition to it. And I think that's what we started to see a little bit more last week, where there were definitely points last week where it looked right, where it looked decent, and it looked like the ball was being moved correctly. But there were just too many stretches where the Cowboys offense just completely disappeared, and just was not able to move the ball. I think what we're looking for in a breakout game is, they don't need to score points every single drive, but getting first downs, like, consistently being able to move the ball, not shooting themselves in the foot every single drive, getting on the right side of the 50. I think just like a little bit level of consistency, but especially, this week, right? That's that's kind of the problem, is that the Cowboys offense could really use a solid defense to kind of just help steady itself while it's kind of continuing to get itself together. But unfortunately, they don't have that luxury. So the expectations of the Cowboys offense is that they need to score. I mean, like we just said, 30 is kind of what the number that you and I were talking about. So it's a difficult situation because there's a lot of expectations being thrust upon the offense. They are dealing with a couple of their own injuries as well, including Cooks. So I think, they have slowly started to build themselves back up, these last few weeks. But again, I think the issue is consistency with the offense at this point, finding some, stability. Having these younger players start to get a little bit more experience, I think, is going to help that situation. But the problem is that, unfortunately, we need it to go a lot faster than it is. We need the kind of evolution of this offense to go a lot quicker than it has been. Maybe this is the week that it takes a big leap forward, but the way it's been going so far, it feels more like it's just been kind of a slow build while the fall of the defense has been very quick. And that's the problem.
So obviously I spoke to Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons on Thursday, getting ready for the show. And my takeaway after talking to him is, if it doesn't happen this week, it's not going to happen for the Cowboys. Like, I'm just throwing out all expectations of this offense because, again, I don't want to steal everything from that show, but their front six is among the worst in the NFL. Baker Mayfield dropped back to throw 50 times last week, was not sacked once. I think he was only hit one time in that game. And that's against a quarterback that loves to take sacks. Matt Judon has not been the same player that they were hoping to get. Their linebackers have been banged up. Troy Anderson probably not playing in this game. Caden Ellis is not a coverage linebacker. And Raheem Morris likes to play a lot of cloud coverage where you can have whatever you want underneath. Their corners, AJ Terrell is fantastic. Mike Hughes is really good. They don't switch sides. And that means that D. Alford is going to be covering CeeDee Lamb in the slot. This is a game the Cowboys offense should cook. Like, Dak is really good about throwing the ball underneath and in the intermediate parts of the field. Can they stay out of their own way? Jesse Bates is one of the best safeties in the league. He's always lurking back there. Justin Simmons should be back this week, but they're going to give up yards. It's, can you score in the red zone? And again, Lane, if it doesn't happen this week, I can't imagine that it ever will.
They got to run the ball, man. Like, they have got to, I mean, all the things you just mentioned are all reasons that the Cowboys should be able to consistently and efficiently run the ball. And I'm not saying, when I say that they should run the ball, I don't mean like 70% run the ball. I mean, run the ball at the normal rate that you are running.
Be effective.
But be effective. Like, this is the week to be effective. Like you just said, all the injuries to the front six. It's not like they were a very talented group to begin with, to be honest. I mean, Judon is obviously a very talented player, but his age has finally kind of caught up to him. So I think that you have got to find a way to find the efficiency in your run game this week. And again, much like you just said, if you don't find it this week, when, like you mentioned, they're going to be playing a bunch of cloud coverage. They're going to be playing with a bunch of safeties back, so they're not going to have that extra guy, and they're not talented in the box. You need to find a way to efficiently run the football and then use that to create the play action pass and find efficiency in the middle passing game with the rest of these weapons in this offense. And you have got to find a way to get Jake Ferguson going, because this is, the real issue I think that we've had with this offense in a lot of ways is just an inconsistency to have a secondary player playing at a high rate. For most of the offseason, we have felt like it was going to be Jake Ferguson, but we just have not seen Jake kind of put up the numbers or be as productive a target as we've seen previous years. And not even just in catches, but like, yards after the catch. So we need to see Jake get more targets, more catches. And then once he gets the ball, we need to see him be a playmaker with the football in your hands. So we need you to create some situations with Yak so that we can keep the offense going and not just solely rely on the Dak and CD connection for this entire offense.
And maybe one of the reasons he gets more involved this week is you're not going up against a Nick Bosa or Aiden Hutchinson or TJ Watt. Yeah. So you're not going to have to protect Terrence Steele as much. Now, Matt Judon will move around a little bit. He's still a good pass rusher, but he's not in the same tier as those guys. And he's not the same athlete that those guys are either, right? So maybe we start seeing 4 and 5 players in route, where that hasn't always been the case
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks. But again, it has to happen this week. I just want to preface this again. The Buccaneers last week were without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans.
That's right.
Baker Mayfield dropped back to throw the ball 50 times, was not hit, was not sacked, and threw for almost 400 yards in that game, right? You better be able to do it this week.
Yeah, if to even prove further your point, just look at what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
Like, look what's coming down the road. It doesn't get easier for this offense, coming the next few weeks. So they need to find something out now. They need to find some consistency now, so that they could, if they want to find a way to turn this season around. I mean, it needed to start last week. It certainly has to start now.
Because if you win this game, let's say the offense does get back on track, they score 34 points, they win 34-31, and you're 4-4 through 8 games, and there is a hope that Micah Parsons and Deron Bland are right around the bend to come out. The season's not over by any stretch, but you go to 3-5 and it's more of the same. I know it's only one game, but I think the vibes would be completely different if you're able to steal this one. Let's make our predictions for this Week 9 NFC matchup. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, maybe you think the Cowboys are down by 4, they're going to put together a game-winning drive, go to the FanDuel app. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. On the Friday edition with Tony, our guy Matt Williamson pops on. So make sure you check that one out as well, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, Landon, it's time for our Week 9 predictions. Who do you have winning this game?
It's hard to pick the Cowboys right now. I mean, it's their defense is where it is right now. The talent is just not there with all the injuries that they're dealing with. They're clearly a team in transition on that side of the ball as well. It's a mess on that side. And the way you survive that sort of thing is to have an offense that is producing at a high level, that is able to kind of carry it along, can help you win some shootouts when you need them to, just to kind of give your defense the opportunity to just be an entity that can make a stop or two, and then that's enough to win the game, right? To make a big play or create a turnover, and that could be enough. The problem with the Cowboys is that their offense has not gotten started. Their defense has dealt with injuries. And in the efforts of trying to create a shootout situation and try to get the offense going, the offense kind of continually is turning the ball over. And right now they're at, I think, -7 overall in team turnovers, which is terrible. So which is not, normal football for this team, and specifically even for Mike McCarthy, right? So this team is just not playing great yet. And until they start playing with a little bit more consistency on offense, which I think is the only side of the ball that I can see a turnaround happening currently, until we get some players back, it's hard for me to pick this team to beat, solidly good teams, especially like Atlanta, who, Atlanta is competing to win the NFC South right now. So they're not a pushover, right? They're ahead of the team that killed us at home in the New Orleans Saints. So I'm picking the Falcons for now until I can see some consistency on this offense. It's going to be tough to confidently pick the Cowboys. We talked about that 30-point number, right? I'm going to pick the Falcons to win 31-28, because I just think Cowboys fall short of getting to the point total that they need. And maybe, and obviously, I think if the Cowboys win this game, it's because they did take an extra step. They did score some more points, or Atlanta really shoots themselves in the foot a lot and just opens the door for a Cowboys team that, can get a little bit, in the Steelers game, they showed you, if you open the door, they'll take the advantage of that. But you kind of have to open the door for them at this point.
This to me reminds me a lot of the Detroit game in the sense of like, Atlanta can be so balanced on offense that it's going to be really hard for the Cowboys to be aggressive blitzing because they can hit you over the top with
That's right.
Darnell Mooney or Kyle Pitts or Drake London. But if the Cowboys stay back and make them just try to use up clock and run the ball, they've got no problem doing that at all. Like Zach Robinson would love to just run Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier and then play action Dallas to death. Their Cowboys are going to have to get lucky to steal this game. And the good thing is, across the NFL, we see every year there are games in which teams shouldn't win, but there's drop passes, there's bad penalties, there's fumbles, and that's how you steal the game. The Cowboys are only 3-point underdogs.
I'm really shocked by that, right? Like that's really surprising.
It is surprising. I do wonder if maybe odds makers believe that this is a good matchup for Dallas's offense, and they don't want to go too far the other way, but I'm picking Atlanta, and I'm going to pick them to win like 37-28. I think this is a game where Dallas' offense is going to look better. I just have a hard time seeing Dallas getting enough stops to keep this one competitive. I do.
When you look at these games, and you compare offenses and defense, to me, it's always about how much of an advantage does their offense have over our defense, and how much of an advantage, vice versa, and which is the bigger, amount that you feel like the advantage is. The advantage here for Atlanta versus our defense is enormous. And it's a lot like, you're right, in the sense that it's a lot like Detroit, where you look at it and you're like, I don't see a path to victory because of this side of the ball specifically. The advantage is too great, right?
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's gonna require some oblong ball bouncing, some luck.
Which happens all the time. It's called Falconsing. I mean, Falcons fans know exactly what this means, right?
There's a whole word for it, right? And listen, we played Kirk in games where Kirk has given the Cowboys some good luck, So obviously we have experience here, and as does Zimmer with Kirk, right? So it certainly is. It's not an unwinnable game, but it's one of those games where you try to look at the paths to victory, and you go through 7 Atlanta victories before you kind of come up with one for the Cowboys.
Dallas is going to need to play well above their heads in order to win this game, because you just look like talent for talent, roster by roster. The Falcons have the much better roster, and even on offense. And we think this is the game where the Cowboys offense could potentially do well. Atlanta's offense just has a far better offensive line and way more weapons than what Dallas has. But because Dak and CeeDee Lamb have this long pedigree together, you do think that eventually they could get it right. But I'm running out of hope that it's going to happen.
The best combo, the most consequential weapon combination in this whole game is Dak and CD. They are the most dangerous, offensive weapon in this. But is that enough on its own to overcome all the other things that Atlanta has going for it on its offense, and the fact that Atlanta's going against a very depleted Dallas defense? It'll take a superhuman effort. Go Cowboys. I hope CeeDee Lamb does it, but it's hard to see.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy the game. Enjoy week 9, and we'll see you right back here on Monday.